What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another week of American Government class. It is Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. I know I did because I spent some time grading some 5-question quizzes with one bonus question, and I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. You guys crushed that quiz. It was very simple. It was a 5-question quiz, but man, you knocked it out of the park. Great job. It was one of the last grades going into the grade book, so booyah, baby. Well done. Today, we have a short but very important class, all right? Our agenda goes like this. We're going to start with a 5-minute review. We're going to get a little crazy on this 5-minute review. We're going to have some fun. I don't know if fun's the right word. Probably not fun, but we're going to change things up a little bit. Then we're going to talk about the Declaration of Independence. We pushed it off last class. If you recall, we erased one of the two things you guys wanted to erase this. You wanted to take the quiz. I'm proud of you still. You crushed the quiz. Now I see why. But we need to talk about the Declaration of Independence. So we got two things we're going to do with that. We're going to take some Cornell notes, and you are going to have an assignment that you have to complete. I'm going to put some pages up on this video again. You guys are going to get some information from there and from the notes that we take today to complete your assignment today. That will serve as your attendance question as well. But the most important thing on our agenda today is probably what you're noticing with all the arrows. Number 5, test week next week. Test week next week. You got a test. It is that time. Not a quiz. Not a quiz. Not a quiz. A test. We're giving you a test. Now, how's this going to go? That's a good question. You know, I don't know. First time ever teaching an online class. First time probably ever taking an online class for most of you. The test is going to be a little bit weird. I may ask you a question and then have you write down the answer. I may send you a multiple choice series of questions and have you answer them. I don't know yet. I'm really not sure. I'm working it out. I'm grinding out the kinks as we speak. But one thing is for sure, you will have a test next week. Now it's going to be all over everything we've done so far. Everything from Unit 1, Foundations of American Government. All right, so everything we've talked about from divine right theory, social contract theory, the Magna Carta, direct democracy, indirect democracy, the features that make up a state, all the things that we're about to talk about in our 5-minute review are going to be on that test. Don't worry, we're going to spend one full day doing a review. I've got a study guide for you. Just like any other year, I'll make sure that I give you enough information, enough time to practice and prep. But next week is a 3-week class. We have American Government on Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Most likely, your test is on Monday of next week, okay? It's going to be a Monday guy. We're going to cover the Declaration of Independence today. On Thursday of this week, we're going to do a study guide and review for the test. Good news about that, no quiz on Thursday. No quiz. I'm not going to sing and dance. No need for that. But no quiz on Thursday, all right? So no quiz this week, but test on Monday. Big portion of your grade, so make sure you study, make sure you do well on it, all right? That being said, let's get this day underway. 5-minute review now. Oh, hello there. I told you we'd get a little crazy today for our 5-minute review. Instead of sitting in front of a board inside, figured we'd get some fresh air, get outside, and I'm saying we like you guys have anything to do with this. Maybe you're outside with me watching on your phone, hope you are. But for today's 5-minute review, we're going to see if we can get through everything that we've learned so far, almost everything, and a little bit of preparation for that test you got next week. So, 40 questions about. I'm going to try to speed through them. No answers today. Just know that if you know these questions, you're good for the test. Number 1, let's get it off, tried and true. Go ahead and wet the whistle a little bit. Oh yeah. What were the name of the people who lived here before Columbus discovered America? Give me 3 names of those tribes. Who gets credit for discovering America, even though he didn't? Give me full name, first and last. What year did he discover it? What country was he born in? All the good ones are, I'm telling you. I mean, I guess I wasn't born in Italy, but I'm Italian. Okay, guess I'm not born there. Moving on, enough about me. What country hired him to sail? King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were king and queen of what country? What country was he actually looking for? And what will we never call the people who he discovered, because we are not dumb and we are not ignorant? We will never call them. What country colonized the east coast of the modern-day United States? What country colonized almost everything south of the U.S.? How many original colonies were there? Can you name at least 5? What was Aristotle a student of? And what country was he from? What are the 4 essential features of a state? And what does the word sovereignty mean? What are the 4 purposes of government? What? That's a new one. Go back, check out those notes. That might be on the test, señores y señoritas. Check it out. What are the 4 purposes of government? Boom! Throwing curveballs from outside. What is the ancient idea that says gods are the people who should choose who should rule? And what is the theory that says the people and the state are involved in an invisible contract? Who came up with the idea of social contract theory? What were the names of the 3 landmark English documents that we studied? And what did they all have in common? And which one was the first one to be written in 1215 and was also the first time that anybody wrote down that a king too must follow the law? What did the British government lose a lot of in the French and Indian War? Which act required colonists to buy a stamp anytime they bought a paper product? Which event left many colonists dead after British troops were being harassed and then fired into a crowd? What were the first 2 battles of the American Revolution? Which act forced colonists to house British soldiers, buy their food and their beer? What was the name of the event where the colonists dumped 340 chests of tea into the Boston Harbor? What were the name of the acts passed in response to the Boston Tea Party by the British government? What form of democracy do you have if you vote on everything yourself? And what form of democracy do you have if you elect people to vote for you? Speaking of democracy, what country does democracy come from? What country do we get the idea of a republic from, where we have people vote for us? What form of government do you have if the people have no rights and the power is in the hands of one single leader, who's usually a jerk? Who was the King of England during the time of colonial unrest? What does the term popular sovereignty mean? What are the other 4 characteristics besides popular sovereignty of a democratic government? In America, we have a president as chief executive. But in England, what do they call their chief executive? Speaking of England, what do they call their legislative body? In America, we call ours Congress. Those are the people that write the laws. What do we call the legislative body of England? And finally, are you even paying attention anymore? Hope so. Those are questions that you might see on your test. Let's get inside, learn about the Declaration of Independence. All right, guys, back inside. Whew, it's a little hot out there. Really crazy, right? Living la vida loca. Going outside for notes. I'm a wild animal. Declaration of Independence notes. Here we go. You're going to need a piece of paper and a pencil. You can pause if you need to get this stuff. We're going to be doing Cornell notes. I got my fake piece of paper here. Line not all the way in the center, a little bit over to the left there. Title it Declaration of Independence Notes. And we're going to start with some background information. All right? Like I said, pause if you need to. We'll be here when you get back. Now, Declaration of Independence, I told you guys last class, possibly the greatest document ever written in American history. That and the Constitution go hand in hand. The Declaration of Independence was basically us saying for the first time, we're going to be our own country, we're going to be free, we're going to make our own rules, our own laws, we're going to have our own democracy, we're done with the king. And this huge part of American government, so that's why we're going to take some notes on it, give you an assignment on it today as well. But starting off with the background, these are going to be things that you already probably know about. First things first, 1763. In 1763, we see the end of the French and Indian War. We know from past classes and 5-minute reviews, one thing about the French and Indian War, the British government lost a lot of money. So, the King of England starts coming up with new policies. You gotta spell it right. I'm not a spelling teacher, guys. New policies. What's another word for a policy? How about a law? Policy is like a rule. So a very big rule is a law. These new policies that were mostly taxes were put in place after the French and Indian War to try and get some of that money back. And they were very, very unpopular amongst the colonists. Colonists did not like any of these new policies. They felt that they had no say in them. No taxation without representation was their rally cry. So they start getting upset. And from 1763, which was when our French and Indian War ended, to about 1775, the problems escalate. That means they get higher, they get bigger. An escalator goes up, the problems escalate. That means they're getting worse, okay? Now, here's a very important key that we haven't talked about. In May of 1775, the Second Continental Congress meets. We've talked about the first, and it sounded a little weird. We learned about the first, not about the second. How can you have a first without a second? Second comes up right around here. After all of those events we talked about, the Boston Tea Party, the massacre, Stamp Act, Quartering Act, all of those events, after that, the Second Continental Congress meets. It's the second time they meet, so they call it the Second Continental Congress. And they meet to ask one question about everything that's going on. And that question is, what to do? What should they do about all these taxes, about all these new policies, about the king having his soldiers kill Boston people in cold blood? What are they going to do? And in June of the year 1776, so about a year later, this meeting was no short meeting. They didn't get together for lunch and say, hey, what should we do? They all went back to Philadelphia. They were there for days. They were there for months. They would come for maybe a few weeks at a time, go back home, come back again. This was a long, drawn-out process. But in June of 1776, underline that. That is very important. They create or decide to create a resolution to break away from Great Britain. Or England, as you probably know. England, Great Britain, roughly the same thing. June 1776, they come up with a resolution. A resolution means, how are we going to solve this problem? You come up with a resolution. Their resolution was to say deuces to Great Britain and the King of England. But they didn't know how to do it. They decided the best way to tell everybody and to tell the world that they were no longer part of England was to create a document, to basically write a letter to the king and write a letter to the people of the world. But who was going to write this letter? You got to have somebody good. So the Second Continental Congress forms a committee. Let's make sure I spelled that right. I did. A committee is appointed, meaning selected, to write the Declaration of Independence. And who was on that committee? 3 very important people, but one very important person who really wrote the most of the document. The 3 people there were more than 3 people, I should say. Scratch that. Rewind that. There were more than 3 people, but 3 of the important ones were John Adams, which you saw a video of him earlier this year, Benjamin Franklin, who some of you know from the $100 bill, guy that flew a kite up there, invented electricity, discovered, helped understand electricity, and the main guy, very important, the 3rd President of the United States, and his name was Thomas Jefferson. Now, he obviously wasn't the 3rd President of the United States yet, because we didn't even have a United States yet. The idea of the United States is just getting formed right here with this document. They were just subjects of the British Kingdom, of the King of England. They just were colonies. They didn't have the United States. Here, they decide, maybe we should break away and form the United States. So later, Thomas Jefferson becomes the 3rd President of the United States. Now, for the document itself. All right, now, the document itself. Go ahead, put the document right underneath wherever you wrote background, and we'll talk about the actual Declaration of Independence. I already told you that the very first thing that we should put up here, one of the most important things, is why they wrote it. Why did they write it? Well, they wanted to explain the reasons why they were leaving England to the world. They wanted to tell everybody, not just the king, not just the people of England, not the people of Great Britain, but to the world. They wanted to say, hey, we need to tell you why we're leaving this country. They also, in the Declaration of Independence, discuss something we're very familiar with, natural rights, which, if you recall, life, liberty, and property is what John Locke thought they were. They discuss the equality of all citizens. However, they had a part about slavery and how slavery was wrong. And after much consideration, they decided to remove the section on slavery because they knew that they would also have to get the southern states to vote in favor of this. And the southern states, if nothing else, loved slaves and owning slaves. So they removed that part. So even though it says the equality of all citizens, they actually took out a part saying that slavery was bad. All right? And then finally, they also discuss the role of government and what the government should do. And all of this stuff can be directly traced back to one man in particular from a long time before this. If you guessed John Locke, you are correct. Natural rights, the equality of all citizens, and the role of government all comes from John Locke. Finally, after they discuss these things, they lay out everything that the king has done to upset them. And we call that the long list of grievances. A grievance is something that you're upset about. If you file a grievance at work, you say, hey, I'm mad that somebody did this. These guys do not hold back. As you'll see today, the list is the longest part of the Declaration of Independence. It's a pretty long document, but by far the longest section is the list of grievances saying, yo, the king did this, the king did that, the king did this, we don't like this, we don't like that about the king. It goes on and on and on. After that, they give justification for their revolution. If you recall, that also goes back to John Locke. If the people and the government are in a contract and the government doesn't fulfill their end of their bargain or their side of the contract, it's up to the people to revolt, to stand up for what's right and get rid of that government, abolish that government, and create a new one. So they throw that in the Declaration of Independence as well. They say, we need to let everybody know that we are correct in deciding to have a revolution. We are justified. And then they formally declare independence. Independence. Meaning at the end of the document, they tell the people, we are now free. We consider ourselves our own nation. We are no longer colonies of the British government or under the rule of King George III. But we are our own country. We are the United States of America. And to settle this all, to put a nice little bow on it, the last thing they do in the document is they give an entire list of signatures. All the people who are at the Second Continental Congress sign it, no matter what state they're from. No matter if they're from New York, Virginia, New Jersey, any of these states, Georgia, all of these people that are the representatives of those states sign the Declaration of Independence. They don't just put the United States. They don't just put one country or one name. Although John Hancock signs his name huge at the bottom. And when they ask him why, he says, so that King George's fat can see it all the way from America. Don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they say. But John Hancock signs his name super large. That's why maybe you've heard someone say, can I get your John Hancock? And they ask for an autograph or your signature. It's because he has the most famous signature in the history of America because he wrote it so large on the Declaration of Independence. But the reason for that was to show the king, hey, it is not just one state or one colony that is against you. It is all 13 of us. We are together. We are independent. We are united. And we are on our own. See you later, King George. All right, those are your notes for today. You're going to use those with a few of the screenshots I put up in the video next to complete a document that I'm sending to you right now. All right? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here is the document that I sent to you. You do not need to copy any of this down. I'm just going to scroll through it. But this is in your email. Now, if you notice right here at the page number 8, there's 2 dots. Anytime you see 2 dots, that means there's usually 2 things you want to look for. If there's 3 dots, look for 3. If there's no dots, that usually just means 1 answer will suffice. this last part, this short essay question, make that only about 3 to 5 sentences, okay? 3 to 5 sentences. Now let's take a look at the actual declaration itself. We'll start with a quick introduction before we go to the next 3 pages of the actual declaration. On July 4th, 1776, delegates at the Second Continental Congress faced an enormous task. The war against Great Britain had begun, but to many colonists, the purpose for fighting was unclear. As sentiment increased for a complete break with Britain, Congress decided to act. A committee was appointed to prepare a document that declared the 13 colonies free and independent from Britain. More important, the committee needed to explain why separation was the only fitting solution to long-standing disputes with Parliament and the British Crown. Thomas Jefferson was assigned to write a working draft of this document, which was then revised. It was officially adopted on July 4th, 1776. More than any other action of Congress, the Declaration of Independence served to make the American colonists one people. Now, for the Declaration itself. Everything with a brown background is going to be how the actual Declaration of Independence was written. Same spelling, same punctuation, everything. What you see on the side in white will be vocab words to help you understand some words that you may not have heard before. There are 3 pages. Make sure you read all 3 and use these 3 pages to answer your Declaration of Independence study guide. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The slides right there show you your paper that I sent you today, as well as the information that you will need to complete the document, all right? That is basically the Declaration of Independence that you would have in your textbook if we were here today. So make sure you read through it, answer all those questions. That is your assignment for today, to complete your Declaration of Independence study guide. That will also serve as your attendance question. All right? So, double points here. Make sure you get your attendance question and your assignment in by simply completing your Declaration of Independence study guide. If you have any questions, as always, I am here for you. Be sitting at the laptop all day. Do not forget that we have a text. Not a text, a test. You might have a text. Check your phone. But you also have a test next week, all right? We will review for it. I won't leave you high and dry. We will make sure that you study next class. No quiz next class, I already said that. But don't forget, test next week. That being said, can't wait to see what you guys get. Make sure you get this to me today. This is attendance and your assignment. Hope you have a great Tuesday. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Take care.